A desperate father fights a monster, shouting for his daughter to wait for him. He reassures the little girl that he possesses a power envied by all, and he promises to save her, no matter the cost. In the city of Xanis, known as Hell on Earth, the atmosphere is bleak and repulsive. There is no sunlight, nor even a glimmer of hope. In the midst of this desolate city, Weiss, a renowned mage of incredible power, walks a path filled with villains. While passing through a street, Weiss's gaze falls upon a bound slave. Approaching closer, he notices the little girl has pointed ears and turquoise hair. Suddenly, Weiss silently wonders if she might be a high elf. High elves are a well-known subspecies of elves, but they differ significantly from common elves, who have green hair and long, horizontal ears. In contrast, high elves possess striking blue hair and ears that point straight up. The high elf race, long believed to be extinct, is said in legends to be capable of using every type of magic in the world. Weiss recalls an ancient book on high magic he once read in the capital. At the time, he thought its contents were mere legend. But now, seeing this high elf girl, he realizes they truly exist. He approaches the slave trader and asks about business, inquiring if all these slaves will be sold. The slave trader complains that he's taking a loss on one particular slave. He explains that recently, all the residents of the hilltop mansion were wiped out. Weiss remains silent, remembering the event perfectly, as he was the one who caused it. He recalls that during a visit to his favorite fried chicken shop, the staff there had announced the shop was closing permanently because the owner had been kidnapped by people from the hilltop mansion. Since no one knew the secret recipe for the fried chicken, the staff couldn't stay in business. This enraged Weiss. He yelled at the staff for not saving the owner when he was taken. Desperate to eat his favorite fried chicken again, Weiss stormed the mansion and attacked its master for the crime of kidnapping his favorite chef. The master of the mansion warned Weiss that he would regret messing with him, but Weiss was fearless, for in Xenos, no laws exist. After defeating the mansion's master, Weiss found the chicken shop owner tied up in the kitchen, busy cooking. The shop owner was incredibly grateful and asked Weiss how he could ever repay him. Weiss simply replied that he wanted the shop to reopen. The shop owner assured him that they would be serving customers again soon. Because of this, Weiss didn't notice the mansion's basement, which housed cells full of slaves. After the incident, thieves raided the mansion and discovered the imprisoned slaves. Due to the large number of slaves, the slave trader couldn't manage them all. So he divided them among other merchants. By that morning, at least 4 slaves had been sold, but one was still left behind. The slave trader explained that while elf girls usually find buyers easily, the remaining elf girl was a big problem. Besides her unusual blue hair, her ears were also deformed, most likely a result of the mansion master's experiments. Weiss glanced at the girl, thinking to himself that as a high elf, she should be worth up to 1 million Xenos. However, since the slave trader didn't realize her true value, he was facing a huge loss. The slave trader lamented that he didn't know what to do with this girl, even considering throwing her out on the street to save resources. In his desperation, he even suggested using her as bait for wild dogs, saying at least that would be somewhat useful. Despite these cruel words, Weiss suddenly asked for the girl's price, stunning the slave trader. He tried to dissuade Weiss, suggesting he find a more useful slave, arguing that this elf girl would only be a nuisance. However, Weiss, with a gentlemanly demeanor, pretended he just wanted to help the man's business. And again, he asked for the elf girl's price. The slave trader, acting generous, offered a price of 220 Xenos, but Weiss unexpectedly offered to pay 300 Xenos, which made the man unable to hide his glee. The man immediately unfastened the shackles from the elf girl, while Weiss noticed that even after being freed, she remained as still as a statue, completely emotionless. He wondered what horrors she must have gone through to become so lifeless. Crouching down beside her, Weiss gently encouraged her to stand up and follow him. Even so, she remained motionless. To encourage her, he took her hand, and finally, she looked up at him, taking her first faltering steps. Although his initial decision to take her home was an impulsive act, Weiss had to admit he knew nothing about caring for a child. Becoming a father figure for the first time was like fumbling around in the dark for him. When they got home, Weiss started thinking of names to call the girl. He listed off several names, hoping she would react to one of them. But when he ran out of ideas, he bluntly asked if she couldn't speak, didn't want to speak, or perhaps if she didn't understand their language. Weiss decided to teach the little girl how he rationalized her behavior, guessing she'd probably been a slave since birth and had never been taught anything, not even how to speak. He reflected on his own nature, admitting he wasn't a good person. All he knew was destruction and killing. He didn't care about others, and to him, justice meant nothing. However, what bothered Weiss was witnessing such vile things happening around him. That spurred him to swear he would raise the girl as his own daughter, not as a slave. But first, he had to help her become aware of herself. He gently stroked her head, promising that from now on, he would be her father. He spoke each word slowly to the little elf, as if to make her understand that they were now father and daughter. Weiss smiled at her, but inside, he was filled with anxiety about the path he had chosen. Being a father wasn't easy, and he knew that well. The little elf slept peacefully in her small bed, while Weiss watched. Thinking about how she'd wet the bed earlier, he blamed himself for forgetting to take her to the bathroom before putting her to bed. If he had remembered, it could have been avoided. Until now, Weiss had overcome most things in life without much difficulty. But raising a child, especially an elf, was a completely different challenge. He felt like he was stepping into the deepest level of a dark dungeon with no equipment or guidance, a journey full of mistakes and struggles. He silently cursed himself for this oversight, and he decided to take her to the bathroom to get her cleaned up. However, even as he cared for her, the girl showed no reaction at all, remaining distant and apathetic. While bathing her, Weiss gently teased that with her wet hair covering her face, she looked like a little ghost. As he massaged her hair, dirt and grime slowly washed out, as if this was her first real bath in a very long time, or perhaps the first in her entire life. Weiss shaped the soap suds into funny forms on her hair. Hoping to get a smile or at least a small reaction from her, Weiss waited patiently. But she remained expressionless, her eyes empty and cold. He sighed, realizing this journey would be much harder than he had imagined. Breaking through her emotional barriers would take a lot of time and effort, and it frustrated him that she hadn't even smiled once. After the bath, Weiss grew even more worried when he realized he hadn't prepared any clothes or underwear for her. He silently cursed himself for this oversight, and had to improvise by wrapping her in a blanket as a makeshift outfit. He gently promised the little girl that the first thing he would do tomorrow morning was buy her new clothes so she could be more comfortable. Carrying the little girl, Weiss took her upstairs and laid her down on the soft bed, telling her that she could now rest comfortably in a clean room, no longer a slave. Exhausted from the long day, he yawned and closed his eyes, drifting off to sleep. But almost immediately, Weiss shot up, his eyes wide with panic. A horrifying thought flashed through his mind. He had forgotten to feed the little girl all day. In a panic, he rummaged through the kitchen, hoping to find something suitable. But all he could find were bottles of liquor and a piece of hard bread. Realizing he couldn't take the little girl out to eat while she still didn't have any decent clothes, Weiss had no choice but to make do with what he had. Bread and dried meat, hardly an ideal. He helped her sit at the table and showed her how to eat. Watching her devour the food, Weiss felt a sharp pang in his heart, realizing just how hungry she must have been. Her thin frame was a clear proof that she hadn't been fed properly for a long time before he brought her home. When she finished eating, Weiss smiled and promised her he would prepare a better meal next time. The next morning, Weiss spent a long time preparing the house for the girl, carefully making sure everything was safe. He meticulously put away anything dangerous, even controlling the fire in the hearth to ensure her absolute safety. Before leaving the house to go shopping, Weiss knelt down, trying to explain to the girl that he would be out for a little while and that she needed to be good and stay home. However, her empty, unresponsive eyes made him realize she didn't understand a single word he was saying. Looking at the girl, Weiss wondered just how much she understood about the world around her. Determined to leave her in the safest possible condition, he checked the house one more time. After carefully taking every precaution, he placed a magical barrier around the house to stop intruders, used a spell to soften the floor so she wouldn't get hurt if she happened to fall, and even used a protective charm on the stairs to prevent accidents. As a final measure, he added another barrier to prevent anyone from entering from the outside. Once he felt satisfied with these overlapping layers of protection, Weiss finally left the house, promising the girl he would be back soon. The moment he stepped outside, Weiss couldn't help but feel anxious, wondering if he was doing this whole father thing right. Arriving in town, he immediately headed to a famous clothing store owned by an elf. As soon as he pushed the door open, he called out loudly for assistance, and the shop owner, instantly recognizing him as the renowned mage, hurried over. Weiss explained that he needed to buy clothes for a little girl, which immediately surprised the female shopkeeper. She raised an eyebrow, her voice filled with suspicion, and accused him of kidnapping a child. Feeling offended by the accusation, Weiss quickly clarified that he had bought an elf slave because no one else wanted her, simply to give her a better life. Still, the shopkeeper's eyes were filled with doubt. She suggested that the situation might not be as simple as it seemed, even hinting that Weiss had questionable intentions. Irritated by the accusation, Weiss firmly denied having any improper motives, insisting that all he wanted was to get the girl some decent clothes to wear. He frankly admitted that he knew nothing about children's clothing and was willing to pay any price if the shopkeeper could help him pick something suitable for the girl. After negotiating and agreeing on a price, the elf shopkeeper finally agreed to help Weiss, promising to create the perfect outfit for the little girl he had taken in. Weiss carefully provided a detailed description of then left the store to continue shopping for other essential items like food. After a busy day, Weiss hurried back home, his heart a mix of eagerness and anxiety. When he arrived, he immediately scanned the house, checking for anything unusual or if the little girl had gotten into any trouble. Surprisingly, she was still sitting right where he had left her, not having moved at all. Weiss let out a laugh of relief, approached her, and asked if she'd been a good girl while he was away, even though he knew she couldn't answer. Realizing she was probably hungry, he rushed to the kitchen and started preparing a meal with the ingredients he'd just bought. Despite not having much cooking experience, Weiss poured his heart into making a decent meal for her. After a while, the meal was finally ready, and he presented it to her with a sense of pride. He patiently guided her on how to use the utensils, especially the spoon, showing her step-by-step how to eat on her own. He was overjoyed when she obediently followed his lead and started to eat, even if she was a bit clumsy at first. Watching her eat heartily, Weiss felt a warm wave of happiness wash over him. The next day, the owner of the boutique, a woman named Holo, paid a visit to Weiss's house. She brought along all the outfits she had finished for the little elf girl. Weiss complained a little, surprised by the sheer number of clothes Holo had made, but she brushed him off, saying she could just take back any that didn't fit. Then, making herself at home, Holo stepped inside. When she saw the elf girl, Holo's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but let out an excited squeal, gushing about how adorable the girl was. Now she understood why Weiss was so concerned about her. However, upon closer inspection, Holo realized the elf girl was unlike anyone she had ever met. Despite having the characteristic pointed ears of an elf, her vibrant blue hair made her stand out. Weiss, not wanting Holo to probe any further, just nodded in agreement that she was indeed special, which was why he decided to keep her without any hesitation. After a short chat, Holo suggested it was time for the little girl to try on her new clothes, asking Weiss to step out to give them some privacy. While waiting in his room, Weiss was lost in thought. Even Holo, who held a high position in the Elven Kingdom, didn't seem to recognize that the girl was a high elf. In fact, it seemed she was completely unaware of the existence of high elves, beings who were thought to be extinct. However, Weiss had heard rumors that high elves were merely hiding deep within the Elven Kingdom and that some might have made their way to Xenis. He began to wonder where this girl could have come from. and what circumstances had brought her to him, his thoughts were interrupted by a loud squeal from Hollow downstairs. She was shouting excitedly about how adorable the girl looked in her new clothes. When Weiss went downstairs to see for himself, he couldn't help but be stunned. The elf girl's transformation was astonishing. The new outfit highlighted her graceful and ethereal beauty, leaving him breathless. Hollow beamed with pride, saying she was glad he was pleased with her work, and she said the generous amount he paid was well worth it. Hollow also gave him a set of underwear, sleepwear, and other casual outfits for the girl, promising to continue supporting him in raising her. She confessed that the idea of Weiss raising an elf by himself was incredibly interesting to her. Weiss gratefully saw Hollow off, thanking her for her help and enthusiasm. Afterward, he led the little elf girl upstairs, as it was time for bed. He gently changed her into her new pajamas, once again struck by how adorable she looked in the comfortable attire. The next morning, after a peaceful sleep, Weiss stretched and realized the little girl was clinging to him in her sleep. A warm smile crept across his face at the small sign of progress. He carefully pulled the blanket back over her. Hoping today would be another good day for them both, he silently prayed that the little girl would start to open up, even just a little. Determined to forge a connection, Weiss tried introducing himself to the little girl again, hoping for a reaction this time. He knelt beside the bed, slowly repeating his name, but once again, the little girl just stared at him with an empty, expressionless gaze. Receiving no recognition, he felt a little disappointed, but he wasn't discouraged. He was beginning to understand that if he wanted her to talk, he first had to find a way to break down the psychological or emotional barriers that were keeping her from connecting with the world around her. But how? He was still completely in the dark about how to help her become more aware of her surroundings. The thought kept running through his mind. What could have happened to make her so distant and withdrawn? Feeling like he was back at square one in caring for the little girl, Weiss tried to recall his own childhood, hoping to understand the thoughts of a child. As memories flooded back, he realized his entire childhood had revolved almost entirely around performing magic and showing off his talents to his friends. He often received praise from older mages, who were always impressed by his superior magical abilities. They said he was far advanced for his age and affirmed that he was truly an exceptional talent. Weiss's childhood was largely problem-free. Everything went smoothly, and his future seemed to be set in stone. Moreover, he was born into a prestigious family, which further solidified his position in society. From a very young age, Weiss was considered a genius and was invited to join the Ministry of Magic, where everyone expected him to quickly rise to a high position within the administration. Although he couldn't remember every detail, he imagined he must have received love from his parents, just like any other child. However, in the end, Weiss couldn't stand the thought of being forced down a predetermined path, so he decided to run away from the capital. His childhood memories had gradually faded due to the harsh experiences and challenges he faced after leaving. The only thing he remembered clearly were his school years, but he couldn't even recall how he had learned to speak. Lost in thought, Weiss began to wonder about the person who had taken over his duties at the Ministry of Magic. They had been classmates, and he'd heard that this person had achieved unprecedented promotions, now serving as the director's assistant. Back then, she was often seen as bland and rarely understood her friends' jokes. However, for some reason, Weiss always felt at ease around her. He often thought that if she would just take off those thick, obnoxious glasses, she probably would have been very popular, because her features were actually quite attractive. As these memories swirled in his head, Weiss found himself drifting off, lost in thought about the past. When he woke up, he immediately went down to the living room and realized it was already dark. His attention was quickly drawn to the little elf girl sleeping soundly on the chair. Gently, he carried her to the bedroom and tucked her in. A thought troubled him. Her apathy and trauma were perhaps issues he couldn't solve with his own judgment alone. Realizing this, Weiss decided to seek help from those with more experience. The next day, he went to see Holo at her shop. Holo observed the elf girl and remarked that her stillness seemed natural, especially since she had lived her entire life as a slave. Weiss agreed, but also expressed that the girl's complete lack of emotion was what still worried him. Holo admitted that she had no experience as a mother, so she couldn't fully understand the situation. Then, an idea sparked in her mind. She suggested they go see Loret, the tavern owner famous for successfully raising 5 children. At first, Weiss was hesitant about the suggestion, but in the end, he agreed to go with her. At the tavern, Loret listened to their story sincerely and advised that the elf girl's problem could be solved with love. This advice took Weiss by surprise. He let out a small laugh, thinking it sounded too simple. But Loret insisted that what the girl was missing was love. Loret advised Weiss to pour his heart into caring for and loving the girl, to help her realize that she now had a family and a place to call home. Weiss sighed, ordered another drink, and pondered the advice. Noticing his hesitation, Loret reassured him that there was no need to overthink it. He had decided to raise the girl because he felt a genuine connection to her. All he needed to do was treat her with all his heart. Holo also agreed enthusiastically, stressing that Weiss needed to give the girl the love of a family. Holo believed this would help the girl open up to him and the world around her. As Holo, now a bit drunk, rambled on about what Weiss should do, he suddenly stood up from his chair, announcing his intention to go home immediately. A powerful urge to see his little girl had welled up inside him. When he got home, Weiss immediately prepared a special dessert for the elf girl. He gently fed her each bite, believing that this action was his way of showing his love. Little by little, she ate everything on the plate. Whenever he had the chance, Weiss would gently pat her head, knowing that this touch could convey warmth and affection. After she finished eating, Weiss gave her a bath and changed her into clean clothes. He patiently took the time to care for and love her, wanting her to understand that his presence was the most important thing he could give her. Besides physical care, he constantly offered her words of comfort and encouragement, hoping that his words would reach her heart in a way she could understand. Although he was still a stranger to her, Weiss was determined to become her father and dedicated himself completely to the role. He held on to the hope that his love would gradually break down the walls she had built and help heal her emotional wounds. The next morning, while he was busy preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Weiss was surprised to see the girl standing beside him. This stunned him, as she had never woken up on her own before. Worried about her health, he quickly checked to see if anything was wrong, especially since this was the first time she had walked by herself without any help. Weiss gently patted her head, and this time, he was overjoyed to see her give a slight reaction, as if showing her appreciation. With patience, he continued to help her eat breakfast, and to his astonishment, the little girl began to try eating on her own. Though her hands were still trembling, she held the fork and slowly brought small bites of food to her mouth. That small act made Weiss feel overjoyed, his heart filled with happiness. Although they still couldn't have a proper conversation, he realized she had become more active, growing and developing little by little each day. Witnessing these small changes, Weiss felt a sense of joy and fulfillment spread through him. Unable to contain his excitement, Weiss immediately ran to the tavern to share the good news with Holo and Loret. He excitedly told them that his little girl had eaten her whole meal by herself. But when he got there, Holo didn't seem to be paying much attention and instead looked at him in surprise. Looking down at his clothes, Weiss realized he had gotten them dirty while doing chores and taking care of the girl. Ignoring his appearance, he happily continued, saying that not only did she eat on her own, but she also walked to the dining room and sat in her chair without any help. Loret raised her glass to celebrate the good news, and Weiss continued to express his joy over his daughter's small steps forward. Loret remarked that this progress was the result of the love and care Weiss had given the girl. This remark made Weiss smile thoughtfully. However, upon reflection, Weiss humbly said that he hadn't done anything special. Loret laughed and replied that just seeing him so happy was proof enough that he had truly become a real father in the little girl's life. Later, back at home, Weiss patiently taught the little girl how to read and pronounce the letters of the alphabet. After finishing the lesson, He praised the little girl for doing so well with what he had taught her. He told her that her memory was amazing and encouraged her by saying they could go even further and learn many new words. With this encouragement, the two spent another hour focused on learning new words together. After the lesson, Weiss noticed the little girl was having trouble with the letter R. However, Weiss reassured her that what she had achieved today was already wonderful, and there was no need to rush. He believed that before long, she would learn many new things. When the lesson ended, Weiss told her it was time to eat. Hearing this, the little girl immediately made her way to her dining chair and sat down, and proudly took her own seat at the dining table. Impressed by this progress, Weiss smiled and said he would start preparing a delicious meal for her to enjoy. Watching the little girl gradually learn and grow, Weiss became even more convinced that high elves were truly a superior race, demonstrating intelligence and potential far beyond other species. While waiting for her food, the little girl picked up a colorful book and suddenly exclaimed the word cat when she saw a picture inside. Her eyes lit up as she continued to read more words like dog and bear, showing off her newfound ability. Weiss was overjoyed by this progress and started thinking about giving her a name based on the first word she spoke, as a way to commemorate it. However, he quickly realized that choosing a suitable name was harder than he thought. Meanwhile, the little girl continued reading more words about animals, showing a particular fondness for them. Afterward, Weiss decided to take her out to buy more picture books, especially ones about animals, to encourage her reading habits. However, when they arrived at the store, the shopkeeper informed them that there were currently no animal picture books available. Instead, he pointed Weiss to a pile of discount books in the corner of the room. Looking at the messy pile, Weiss wondered if there might be an animal book mixed in there. The shopkeeper admitted that he couldn't find any specific books in the pile and wasn't sure about their contents either. He explained that he had a bad back recently, so he hadn't been able to sort or check them thoroughly. Hearing this, Weiss quickly offered to help and used his magic to neatly organize the pile of books in just a few seconds. This act so astonished the shopkeeper that he couldn't help but agree to help them find the book that the little girl was so eager to read. After leaving the bookstore, the little elf girl happily clutched a new book in her hands, her face beaming as she saw the colorful animal illustrations inside. On their way home, they stopped to buy more groceries. As Weiss prepared a hearty stew for dinner, the little girl was engrossed in her new book, her eyes sparkling with delight. While Weiss was focused on chopping vegetables and cooking, he suddenly heard the little girl read the word lily aloud from the book. He froze, turning to look at her in amazement that she could clearly pronounce the letter L. Curious, he took the book and realized the author's name was Lily Reed. An idea sparked in Weiss's mind. Lily would be a beautiful name for his daughter. He excitedly began to call her Lily. And overcome with joy, Weiss lifted Lily and spun her around in his arms, happily declaring that from now on, she would be known as Lily Frenberg. This moment marked the beginning of a new journey, as Lily began to absorb everything around her at an astonishing rate. Her bright eyes showed an endless curiosity. Over time, Lily became quite well known in the Zenus community, radiating joy like a warm ray of sunshine that touched everyone she met. Lily learned to talk and express her emotions, which made her more adorable than ever. With her newfound confidence, she easily built warm relationships with those around her, who always showered her with love and affection. One beautiful day, Weiss and Lily took a stroll through the park under the brilliant sunshine. As they walked, Lily excitedly exclaimed that the weather was wonderful, and Weiss immediately agreed, feeling grateful to enjoy this moment with her. They basked in the warm sunlight, savoring every single moment. After that, Lily eagerly ran into Hollow's shop, and the little girl threw herself into the woman's arms. Hollow, unable to hide her joy, held her tightly and welcomed her with a radiant smile. Seeing how full of energy Lily was, Hollow teased that she was especially lively today, making Lily beam with happiness. Weiss, feeling a little bad, quietly apologized for visiting the shop so often. Hollow just waved her hand with a smile reassuring him that they were always welcome and that she truly enjoyed their visits. Meanwhile, with innocent excitement, Lily ran around the shop, eagerly looking for new clothes. Weiss, gently but firmly, reminded her of her promise not to buy anything today. Overhearing their conversation, Hollow laughed, joking that she never expected Weiss to become such a strict father. He just shook his head, explaining that he didn't want to spoil Lily too much. During their conversation, Weiss suddenly announced that he would be leaving Zenith next month, leaving Hollow stunned. He explained that Zenith wasn't a suitable place to raise a child. Lily couldn't make any friends in this town because almost every child there was a slave. He longed to return to the capital, where he could send Lily to school and where he knew many people, including the teachers from his old school. Hollow was surprised to learn that Weiss was from the capital but had chosen to live in a place like Zenith. Weiss shared his story, explaining that he had fled from the Ministry of Magic because of their overly aggressive recruitment campaigns. Just then, Lily happily held up a dress she really liked, her eyes sparkling with hope. Weiss gently reminded her that they couldn't buy anything today, but Lily's pleading eyes made it impossible for him to refuse, and he reluctantly agreed. Afterward, Hollow and Lorette saw the father and daughter off, generously preparing beautiful dresses for Lily to wear in the city, along with some delicious snacks for their journey. Hollow admitted that she felt uneasy about Weiss leaving Zenith. She reflected on how this mage had somehow made the crime-ridden place more livable by standing up to the wicked and punishing their outrageous behavior. In response to Hollow's worries, Weiss said that if she ever got into trouble, she could always call him. He assured her that, although he didn't care what happened to Zenith, if it was to help Hollow, he would definitely come to her rescue. "It's my way of thanking you for everything you've done to help me raise my daughter," he explained. Lily then gave Hollow a tight hug, thanking her for the beautiful dresses she'd made, her affection clear in her actions. After expressing their gratitude to Hollow and Lorette, Weiss and Lily climbed into their carriage and began their journey to the capital. A few days later, the father and daughter continued their trip, this time passing through a lush green forest, immersing themselves in the sights and sounds of the nature around them. Finally, they reached the capital, and Lily couldn't help but be amazed by the city's vastness and majesty. She pointed at the towering city walls, her eyes filled with excitement upon learning that this was where her father was born. Before continuing, Weiss took a moment to remind Lily to be on her best behavior and instructed her to tell everyone that she was an orphan. He also explained about the protective magic surrounding the capital, which meant people could only enter and exit through the main gates. As they stood before the gate, Weiss reflected on Lily's painful past as a slave, feeling determined to hide that truth from others, especially since slave trading was a serious crime in the capital. He knew no one would believe him if he said Lily was his biological daughter, so he had prepared adoption papers in advance to prove their legal relationship. As they approached the capital's great gate, Weiss confidently introduced himself. The guards quickly recognized him, but immediately straightened up when they heard he was a friend of Zieglin, the assistant minister. When Lily curiously asked about Zieglein, Weiss explained that she was a friend of his, who would help them get through the gate more easily. After a few minutes of waiting, Lily, tired from the long journey, slowly drifted off to sleep. When Zieglin arrived later than expected, a squad of soldiers appeared, escorting her to the gate. Seeing Weiss with a little girl, Zieglin couldn't hide her surprise. Weiss just smirked teasingly, remarking that he couldn't believe she was still wearing those huge, boring glasses. Inside a reception office at the Ministry of Magic, Weiss gently placed Lily, still fast asleep, in a comfortable position on the sofa next to him. He glanced at Zieglin and joked that the ministry was clearly doing well for itself. Zieglin nodded in agreement, adding that they weren't a charity. Weiss chuckled, remarking that she hadn't changed a bit, still as serious as ever. Zieglin's gaze fell upon Lily. After a moment of silence, she suddenly asked if the girl was actually Weiss's biological daughter. Caught off guard, Weiss spat out his drink, and he hastily explained that of course she wasn't. Since Lily was from a different race, Zieglein took a closer, more careful look at Lily and was stunned to realize that the girl was actually a high elf. Weiss confirmed this, leaving Zieglein even more stunned. He shared the story of how he had been fortunate enough to find Lily a year ago and had been raising her as his own daughter ever since. Weiss explained that the reason he returned to the capital was to find a good school for Lily, as she was an orphan. Weiss desperately wanted Lily to experience a normal life, filled with happy childhood moments and the chance to play with other children her age. He wanted to ensure she could be happy and erase the painful memories of her past. As a devoted father, he earnestly pleaded for Zieglein's help to get Lily enrolled in the prestigious school they had once attended. Seeing his friend so desperate for the first time, Zieglein agreed to help get Lily admitted for the next year. Weiss expressed his deep gratitude, but he had two other requests. First, he wanted to find a safe home for Lily, and he was willing to pay a large sum to ensure it. Additionally, he requested bodyguards to protect Lily while she attended the school. He understood that if anyone discovered Lily was a high elf, it would cause complex problems. Therefore, he wanted to proactively protect her from any danger. Weiss stressed that he wanted to keep Lily's true identity a secret, limited to only himself and Zieglein. However, Zieglein hesitated, pointing out that the existence of a high elf was considered a national asset. Hearing this, Weiss sighed, explaining that he didn't want Lily, a child, to be caught up in the complex issues of adults, especially being exploited. Understanding the seriousness of Weiss's request, he offered to help Zieglein in exchange for her support. Aware of the difficulties Zieglein was facing at work, he offered to become her personal employee. Hearing this, Zieglein was overjoyed and immediately agreed to the deal. The two officially established a new partnership, and Zieglein promised to train Weiss diligently to prepare him for his new responsibilities. She then informed Weiss that they would start looking for a suitable place to live to ensure his and Lily's safety and well-being in the capital. Weiss then asked his old friend Zieglein how much the city had changed since he had been away. He also mentioned hearing a rumor that Gutrin's magical artifact shop had relocated. This reminded Zieglein of the magic shop Weiss was banned from because of an accident. They reminisced about their younger days when they had visited the shop together. That time, Weiss had gotten curious about an item and accidentally activated it. The device discharged a powerful surge of energy, causing every other magical item in the shop to go haywire, inflicting pain on both Zieglein and the shopkeeper. Zieglein was still annoyed remembering how she had to get her father to apologize to the shopkeeper, and how her family was stuck paying off the massive debt Weiss had caused. To pay it back, Weiss had to do odd jobs for Zieglein's family after school. Still, Weiss wanted to thank Zieglein for helping him with that huge debt back then. She just laughed, saying it was all in the past, but quietly let it slip that he could have avoided all that trouble if he'd just married her. A confused Weiss asked her to repeat herself, not quite catching what she said. Zieglein immediately got flustered, denied it, and quickly changed the subject. The two of them then arrived at Weiss's new house. He was surprised to see it was much bigger than he had imagined. Zieglein explained that the house belonged to the Ministry of Magic, but since no one was using it, the rent was cheap enough for him to afford. Just as Weiss was about to thank her, Zieglein smiled and added that she'd make him work like a dog to earn this place. Lily woke up just as they were about to enter the house. The little girl cheerfully ran through the hallways, excited to explore her new home. For everything she saw, Lily would excitedly pull her father over to show him. Zieglein reassured Weiss that they didn't have to worry about their secret being exposed or any security issues because she had plenty of trustworthy subordinates living nearby. Meanwhile, Lily discovered a sofa full of big, soft cushions and immediately loved the warm, comfortable feeling of burying her face in them. Seeing the little girl so happy, Zieglein couldn't help but feel moved, and she unexpectedly asked Weiss if Lily currently had a mother. Zieglein's face lit up with a hint of romantic hope when Weiss replied that he didn't have a girlfriend, so that wasn't the case. She mustered up her courage and asked if she could be the girl's mother. Weiss bluntly replied that he couldn't picture her as a mother, which made Ziegling tremble with fury. Seeing how serious she looked, Weiss assumed she was just being thorough with her investigation into the high elf race. He gently told her that he understood her sentiment, but that such a commitment would be the same as becoming his wife. Then he suddenly asked if that would be an issue for her boyfriend. Hearing this, Ziegling shouted that she didn't have a boyfriend and that he was the reason why. Weiss was confused, not understanding what she meant, while Ziegling's face turned bright red with embarrassment. She tried to save face by explaining that it was all his fault she had to work at the Ministry of Magic, where she was so busy she had no time for a personal life. Then Ziegling approached Lily with a determined look, declaring that it was time for Weiss to pay his debt to her. She introduced herself to Lily and bluntly asked if she wanted a mother. Watching the way Ziegling asked the question, Weiss thought she looked like a weirdo who had no idea how to talk to children. However, he also began to wonder if Lily needed a mother. Meanwhile, Ziegling continued to ask Lily if she wanted her to be her mother. Ziegling's frighteningly serious expression scared Lily, who quickly ran to hug Weiss's leg tightly. Ziegling felt rejected when Lily said she already had a father. She wondered where she had gone wrong, while Weiss gave her a look that seemed to say the reason was obviously because she had come on too strong. Later, as he watched his daughter sleeping soundly, he started to think about whether Lily really needed a mother. The next day, the Magic Academy sent Weiss a letter with a list of supplies for Lily to start school. He told his daughter that she would be learning magic, but also explained that he wouldn't be going with her because he had graduated a long time ago. Hearing this, the little elf was so proud of her talented father that she reached out and patted his head as if to praise him. This moved Weiss so much that his eyes welled up with tears. Looking at the list, Weiss saw that the most important items included a wand to cast spells, a magic cloak for protection against magic, and a magic hat to help control her power. They left the house to go shopping. Lily walked beside her father, amazed by the bustling crowd around them. She curiously asked her father about the shops they passed, her eyes always shining with excitement. When they stopped in front of a splendid clothing store, Lily pointed, staring in amazement. The outfits inside were so brilliant that she felt as if she had stumbled into paradise. Walking inside, Lily introduced herself to the shopkeeper, innocently saying she was excited for school, where she could learn many things to help her father. Her words moved Weiss so much that tears streamed down his cheeks. The shop owner suddenly appeared, and as it turned out, it was Esmeralda, Weiss's former teacher. She had been the teacher of both Weiss and Ziegling and was known as the most talented witch in the royal capital. Weiss and Esmeralda quickly started chatting over a cup of tea. She mentioned that she had opened the clothing shop just a few years ago for fun, never expecting it to thrive without relying on her reputation. Esmeralda teased Weiss, telling the staff that he was the reason she had quit teaching at the magic school. However, Esmeralda admitted the real reason she left teaching was because she recognized Weiss's talent. She felt it was time to pass the torch to the capital's next great wizard. Meanwhile, Lily was busy trying on a cloak she had found in the shop. She struggled to put it on, so a shop assistant had to help her put it on correctly. Esmeralda looked at the little girl and immediately realized that Lily was a high elf. Weiss praised his former teacher for her excellent perception and then explained that he had decided to become Lily's father. All he wanted was to give her a good life and the tools she needed to live independently. Esmeralda asked if he wanted Lily to have a special cloak to protect her. Weiss, having no doubt about his former teacher's talent in crafting cloaks, thought that what he was buying in the shop was enough. However, Esmeralda revealed that he could get a much higher quality cloak. This made Weiss curious, and he shared that he wanted Lily to have the best cloak in the world. Hearing this, Esmeralda said that it was possible, but only if he hunted a crystal dragon. Weiss immediately realized she was talking about the most difficult dragon species to hunt, known for its ability to absorb magic through its crystal body parts and its nickname, the Mage Slayer. Meanwhile, Ziegling was standing in front of a mirror, practicing her smile to get acquainted with Lily. However, when she came out, her face looked overly stern and intense. Her maid Emma reassured her that the expression looked very majestic and noble, but that didn't make Zegline feel any better. The day before, Zegline had asked Weiss if she had scared Lily with her expression. Weiss advised her to act more relaxed when approaching Lily. He also asked Zegline to recommend a babysitter since he would be out all day the next day. Instantly, a determined Zegline volunteered to look after Lily, even saying she would take a day off from work, just to get Lily to call her mom by the end of the day. Now, Weiss was getting ready to leave the house to hunt a crystal dragon on his magic-powered motorcycle, which Esmeralda had customized for him. His daughter Lily asked with tears in her eyes if she could go with him. Inside Weiss's head, an angel and a devil appeared, debating the pros and cons of bringing his daughter along. In the end, he resisted and decided that this trip was too dangerous for Lily. Zegline took on the responsibility of watching Lily. She tried to keep a very forced smile on her face, not wanting to scare Lily. However, Zegline had no idea what to do, so she just sat still on the sofa, watching the girl play with her toys and wondering if Lily found her scary. Lily looked at Zegline's awkward smile, then quickly ran to grab her crayons. She drew a caricature of Zegline with that very smile and excitedly showed it to her. Zegline was deeply touched and told Lily that she'd made her truly happy. Suddenly, Lily's stomach started to rumble. Zegline immediately took the little girl to a fancy cafe and ordered a plate of pancakes for her. Lily looked at the plate of pancakes and was instantly captivated. She happily told Zegline that it was her first time trying this dish, and that the pancakes were so soft, fluffy, and delicious. The fact that Lily had never eaten such a basic food that all children love made Zegline curious about the little girl's past life. While Lily excitedly enjoyed the pancakes, she mentioned that she had only ever been to Mr. Loret's shop before. She also mentioned a Miss Holo, whom she described as being very friendly with her father. Lily's mention of a woman close to Weiss made Zegline feel uneasy. She recalled Weiss saying he didn't have a girlfriend at the moment, but in her anxious state, she thought Holo must be his ex-wife. Lily continued talking about Holo, saying that she owned a clothing store and that her father was a regular customer there. Hearing this, Zegline realized she had been worrying for nothing. She asked Lily where the store was located, and the little girl innocently replied that the store was in Zenith. The mention of Zenith stunned Zegline, as she had heard it was the most ruthless city in the world. Meanwhile, Weiss was riding his motorcycle to an active volcano to hunt a crystal dragon. He considered that the materials from this dragon would be ideal for making tunic-like armor, and its long, magic-absorbing horn would be perfect for crafting a wand. Weiss knew this hunt would be difficult, as the crystal scales covering the dragon's body not only absorbed, but also nullified all magical attacks. However, Weiss wasn't worried. He believed his magic overload strategy would be the way to defeat the dragon. When he saw the crystal dragon, he realized it was a massive, shimmering creature with solid crystal armor. Weiss immediately summoned a spear made of magical energy and hurled it with all his might toward the creature. But the spear vanished before it could even touch the dragon, leaving it completely unharmed and maintaining its calm demeanor. Weiss realized he had underestimated the dragon's power, a creature that could withstand a magical blow powerful enough to destroy an entire city. The crystal dragon was now furious, forcing Weiss to flee immediately. As he moved, he picked up a small stone and threw it at the giant creature, using magic to enhance its impact. The dragon blocked it with its tail, but the stone still managed to shatter the tips of the crystal spikes on its tail. This discovery made Weiss realize that physical attacks were the only way forward, though he also knew it would be extremely difficult, since even that last hit only caused minor damage. A crystal fragment from the dragon's tail flew towards Weiss, and it absorbed magic from his body, making him realize its special power. Just then, an idea struck him. He would pour all his magical energy into this crystal fragment until it was so full of energy it was about to explode. Looking at the dragon's mouth, Weiss realized it was its weakest point. He summoned all his strength, throwing the crystal shard toward the dragon's mouth, while screaming with determination that Lily deserved that shining armor. The dragon opened its mouth and caught the crystal shard, and immediately, a violent explosion erupted, catching even Weiss completely off guard. After the intense battle, he returned to Esmeralda's shop looking exhausted. Weiss handed his old master a bag containing 50 precious crystal shards. However, Esmeralda refused to take them, saying she didn't need that many. When Weiss asked if she could buy them from him, she sighed and said she didn't have enough money, and advised him to find a sponsor. They would need these materials to enhance their magic dresses. In Weiss's mind, an image of Lily wearing a gorgeous, princess-like dress appeared, making him think it was a wonderful idea. When he got home, little Lily was so overjoyed to see her father that she ran up and threw her arms around him in delight. Weiss thanked Zieglin for taking care of Lily while he was away, but Zieglin gently said that it was a pleasure for her, as she had the chance to spend time with Lily. When Weiss asked Lily if she was getting along with Zieglin, Lily innocently replied that she loved Zieglin very much, and even mentioned that Zieglin had let her try some delicious pancakes. Zieglin also shared that she truly cherished her time with Lily, but was a little sad that the little girl hadn't called her mom yet. Weiss comforted Zieglin, explaining that it had taken Lily a very long time to call him dad. He recounted that when she finally did, he couldn't hold back his tears after Lily had fallen asleep. Weiss decided to take the little girl to the Francois fashion house. Lily saw a gorgeous magic dress and was instantly captivated. Aurelia, the head designer of Francois and a talented elf, introduced herself to them. She asked if Weiss was the one who wanted to supply them with materials. Weiss nodded, saying he would provide them with precious materials from the body of a crystal dragon. Aurelia was extremely impressed, as materials from a crystal dragon were incredibly rare. She had never even worked with them before. After an inspection, Aurelia confirmed that the bag of materials did indeed contain real crystal dragon shards. She was curious if Weiss had really defeated the dragon by himself. Weiss replied that he would give them the materials free of charge, but only if they accepted his conditions. Aurelia, surprised, asked what he wanted. Weiss's first condition was that Francois must use the crystal dragon's horn to create their next centerpiece magic dress. Aurelia, captivated by the idea, agreed immediately. While Lily was trying on different dresses in the store, with every single one she put on, the Francois staff couldn't help but gush over how adorable she was. Weiss smiled, telling Lily she looked wonderful in the dress. But then he suddenly turned to Aurelia with a serious expression. He said that his second condition was the most important one. Weiss revealed that his condition was for Francois to also make a magic dress for Lily, completely identical to the centerpiece dress they planned to design from the crystal dragon's horn. Aurelia was surprised, not understanding why he would make such a simple request when he could have asked for immense wealth. Weiss answered frankly that all he wanted was to see his daughter in a beautiful dress. He said they didn't need money, and that to him, Lily's happiness was the most important thing. Weiss's words made Lily overjoyed, and she jumped with joy at the news she would get to wear a magic dress. Weiss looked at her, gently telling her she would look like the most beautiful princess in the world. Aurelia watched them, thinking to herself that this father was definitely not normal. The next day, Weiss and Lily made their way to the dilapidated outskirts of the capital, where everything looked ruined and abandoned. Weiss recalled his conversation with Esmeralda when she told him to go to the outskirts, where a friend of hers lived who could help him craft a magic wand. After some searching, the father and daughter finally arrived at the house they were looking for. But seeing the messy and shabby house, Weiss couldn't help but frown. They stepped inside into the dark and damp interior to find someone named Romero. A scruffy, bearded old man appeared, holding a large bottle of liquor. A hint of nostalgia in his eyes when he heard Esmeralda's name. Weiss explained that he had heard from his master about Romero's extraordinary talent for crafting wands. He implored him to craft a wand, even presenting the crystal dragon's horn, a precious material that no other artisan he could find was able to handle. However, Romero, despite admitting he could do it, refused because he had long since retired. Weiss, unwilling to give up, asked if there was any way to change his mind. But Romero was adamant, wanting to be left in peace and not be bothered. Just then, Lily stepped forward, her small hands adorably clenched together, and sincerely asked him to make a wand for her. Faced with the little girl's innocence, the old man finally agreed. But with one condition: they had to bring him a truly high-quality liquor. This condition sent Weiss on a quest for the ideal drink. When Lily asked if the liquor was delicious, Weiss was initially going to say that it was amazing, but then he realized that wasn't appropriate for a child. He quickly told her it wasn't tasty at all and advised her not to try it. Lily then innocently asked why adults like to drink it if it's not good. Weiss could only reply that they drink it out of duty, which made the little girl even more curious. While thinking about the legendary liquor, Weiss remembered Zieglin's advice. She had mentioned a very famous sake, one that was produced exclusively for the nobility, which her father, a sake lover, treasured dearly. However, she also expressed her concern that her father would certainly not share the sake with Weiss. Hearing this, Weiss picked up a jar of salt and confidently told Zieglin to give it to her father as a gift. She worried that such a simple gift wouldn't be enough to trade for the precious sake, but Weiss was certain he would love it since he was a sake enthusiast. The next time Zieglin met Weiss, she brought 2 special bottles of sake and recounted the surprising story. She said she couldn't believe her father had agreed to trade something so valuable just for salt. She curiously asked what kind of salt Weiss had given her. She shared that as soon as her father tasted it, he was hooked, drinking non-stop until he was completely drunk. Weiss smiled and said it was just an extremely delicious type of salt. Zieglin remarked that she'd never tried it. So Weiss invited her to have some sake and try the salt with him sometime. His invitation sounded like a romantic gesture, making Zieglin blush. Even though she wasn't much of a drinker, she still agreed. With a flushed face, Zieglin awkwardly said she needed to get back to her office. As Weiss and Lily waved goodbye to Zieglin, he suddenly thought about how grateful he was for her. Despite being busy with work, Zieglin often visited his home. However, Weiss misunderstood, thinking she was just passionate about her high elf research, and that was the reason she came. Meanwhile, on her way back to work, Zieglin recalled memories from her student days at the Magic Academy. Back then, Weiss had told her she looked beautiful without her glasses. She remembered the time he took off her glasses and said she should switch to a more suitable pair to enhance her beauty. Zieglin tried to get her glasses back then, but Weiss, in a teasing manner, wouldn't return them right away and instead kept giving her beauty advice. Finally, when she got tired of chasing him, Weiss gave her glasses back. That's when he curiously asked why she spent so much time in the library. He introduced himself, but Zieglin already knew he was the famous student with the best academic record in the school. In return, she told him her name. Weiss also knew of her as the school's bookworm and started to feel like he wanted to know more about this quiet girl. Weiss had told Zieglin they would meet again, but the annoyed girl told him not to come back. Despite the warning, Weiss kept coming to the library to see her. Gradually, Zieglin became more comfortable around Weiss, and the two became close friends, often laughing together. Now, Zieglin stood on a bridge, looking down at the sparkling lake, reminiscing about those days in the library. She wondered how many years had passed since those memories. Her heart pounded fiercely, as if her first love was reawakening, making her feel like she couldn't control her emotions. Meanwhile, Romero was so captivated by the special sake that he agreed to make the wand. The next day, Weiss and Lily went to Esmeralda's shop to pick up the new cloak. Esmeralda presented the cloak to Lily, and the little girl was immediately enchanted. Esmeralda also gave Weiss the wand that Romero had made. Weiss was amazed to see that the wand was finished just one day after he ordered it. He looked at the wand sparkling in the light, made from a crystal dragon's horn, and felt it was even more beautiful than he had imagined. Lily, excited about her new gift, asked if she could try out the wand. Lily held her new wand, looking absolutely beautiful and adorable in her crystal dragon cloak, waving the wand around her. The sight was so adorable that Weiss couldn't believe his eyes. He told his daughter that she looked wonderful and lovely. Esmeralda smiled, telling Weiss to look closer at the cloak so he could see that every detail shimmered like crystal. She explained that with this material, it could be considered the finest armor in the empire. Weiss picked Lily up, proudly declaring that his daughter was the cutest mage in the world. In a moment of excitement, he wanted to run outside and show her off to the entire capital. But he immediately realized that would be a terrible idea. Seeing Weiss look worried, Esmeralda asked if he was okay. At that moment, Weiss began to worry about Lily having to go to school without him by her side. He was afraid she might get hurt or kidnapped. He thought about the Nastarsha School of Magic, a prestigious academy with a long history of teaching the Empire's top magic. Despite being a famous school, Nastarsha didn't just accept students from noble families, but opened its doors to any child who wished to learn magic. Weiss recalled his own early days at Nastarsha, when he knew absolutely nothing about magic before enrolling. He started to worry that because the school was designed primarily for humans, Lily, a high elf, might struggle to keep up with a learning pace designed for another race. However, he also pictured his daughter making lots of new friends, living happy and carefree days. As a father who wanted his daughter to enjoy her school life to the fullest, he was determined to do everything he could to make that a reality. Afterward, the father and daughter returned home. Weiss asked Lily to close her eyes, telling her he was going to teach her magic. He took her hand and told her that she would become a great mage. Weiss reminded himself that most races are born with magical power in their bodies, and that power can only be unleashed when one is guided on how to sense magical energy and receives a proper education. Weiss channeled magical energy from his hand into Lily's so she could feel the sensation. He asked Lily to try to release magic from the palm of her hand. However, no matter how hard she tried to concentrate, not a single spark of magic appeared from her small hands. Lily tried so hard that she became exhausted, prompting Weiss to hold his little girl and comfort her, saying it was normal not to succeed on the first try. Even so, Lily kept trying to conjure magic from her palms, but nothing happened. Weiss began to worry, as even students with no talent could usually use magic to some extent. After a few more attempts, Lily still wanted to keep going. But it was time for dinner. The little high elf felt sad, thinking that she might not be able to become a mage. Seeing his daughter's tear-streaked face, Weiss quickly reassured her that she would definitely become a great mage. As he held his daughter, he began to wonder if this difficulty was related to her being a high elf. Perhaps it was time for him to seek help. They went to Esmeralda's shop, where the old teacher carefully examined Lily to find out what the problem was. After a moment of observation, Esmeralda discovered the cause and explained that Weiss had unintentionally been passing a slow magic flow to his daughter, whereas other high elves have a much faster flow. As a result, Lily's body was being disrupted by the slow magic flow, which didn't match her own natural frequency. Weiss was saddened by this realization, thinking it was all his fault. Seeing her father looking heartbroken, Lily asked if he was okay. Weiss looked back at her and blamed himself, feeling like a terrible father for unintentionally causing his daughter to lose her confidence. He asked Esmeralda for advice, and she suggested that he adjust the speed of his magic flow to match Lily's. Weiss carefully took Lily's hand while the little girl focused her mind. He controlled the amount of magic flowing through her body, adjusting it to flow faster. This time, Lily could feel the magic flowing through her body much more clearly. She tried again to release the magic from the palm of her hand. Weiss sensed that something big was about to happen, and quickly erected a magical barrier to protect the wall in front of Lily. On her first try, Lily released a blast of magical energy so powerful it would have destroyed the wall if not for the barrier. When the energy dissipated, Lily turned to her father and asked if she had done it. Weiss smiled and confirmed that she had succeeded. She burst into tears, moved by the hope that she could become a real mage. While Weiss praised his daughter and stroked her hair, He blamed himself for making her feel so insecure. He congratulated Lily and held her tightly on her very first day as a true mage. A butterfly flew over and landed on Lily's head, and she happily showed her father. Weiss realized that it was thanks to Esmeralda's help that Lily could now sense the magic coming from the butterfly. He felt happy watching his daughter enjoy this moment. Now that he understood what it felt like to be a father, Weiss decided to return to a place from his past. He sighed and decided to go there with Lily. They arrived in front of a large house. As Weiss knocked on the door, he told his daughter that this was the house where he had grown up. He recalled that ever since leaving the capital, he had never contacted his parents. He predicted they would either scream, cry, or even faint upon seeing him appear so suddenly. Especially with a daughter in tow, Weiss knew the chances of a dramatic reaction would only increase. However, he was prepared for whatever came his way. The door opened, and a woman appeared, standing frozen as she recognized her long-lost son. They all sat down to eat and talk, bridging the gap of the past years. The mother introduced herself to Lily, calling herself the little girl's grandmother. Lily curiously asked her grandmother if she was her mother. Weiss quickly explained that that wasn't the case. His mother smiled, teasingly told him he was doing a great job as a father, and said how proud she was. This made Weiss feel uneasy because she wasn't angry at him for leaving without a word. He asked why she wasn't prepared to scold or hit him for it. But his mother just smiled and said she was never worried, because she believed he would be fine. She also revealed that Zeglin visited her often, so she always knew what he was doing and how he was living. His mother explained that after he left home, Zeglin had come to them and declared she would go find him. Since then, she had visited them every week to give them updates. Weiss realized that he had also made Zeglin worry a lot. When his mother asked if he had ever thought seriously about Zeglin, she emphasized that Zeglin was the only one who cared for him so deeply, despite his selfishness. On the way home with Lily, Weiss couldn't stop thinking about Zeglin's wish. He recalled that she wanted to become Lily's mother and assumed it stemmed from her affection for Lily. After he had lulled Lily to sleep, Weiss became determined to help Zeglin and Lily get along better. He stepped out of his daughter's room and saw Zeglin waiting for him there. He sat down next to her, which flustered her because of his serious expression. Suddenly, Weiss grabbed Zeglin by the shoulders and said that he would help her become Lily's mother. His words made Zeglin blush, and she couldn't help but spit out all the tea she was drinking. She felt like Weiss's actions were straight out of a romantic fairy tale, where a man was confessing his love to a woman. Weiss didn't understand what she was talking about and seriously told her to focus on the conversation. Zeglin was blushing so hard she could barely breathe, feeling ecstatic because she thought this was Weiss's confession of love. Meanwhile, Weiss still couldn't understand why she seemed so happy. He just thought her smile looked very cute. Zeglin asked Weiss if he was free tomorrow, and he agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. Weiss thought Zeglin had invited him to discuss a serious matter, but when she showed up looking radiant in casual clothes, he had absolutely no idea why. She told him that this was her favorite coffee shop, famous for its pancakes. Weiss looked at the menu and saw the pancakes were very expensive. But when Zeglin said the meal was his treat, he thought he should take a portion home for Lily. When the pancakes were brought out, Weiss immediately understood why they were so expensive. Given their exquisite and appealing presentation, Zeglin said that she didn't really like sweets, but since this was the shop's specialty and she had never tried it, she decided to order it. Her face flushed as she gently suggested they try it together. Weiss cut a piece and tasted it, then enthusiastically praised how delicious the pancake was, noting it wasn't too sweet so she could eat it too. Zeglin took a bite and agreed that it was indeed wonderful. Weiss looked at her radiant face as she enjoyed the pancake, and in that moment, he felt everything around him seem warmer. Zeglin shared that she used to visit this coffee shop since they were students, but couldn't believe that now, after 10 years, they were here together. As they left the shop, Zeglin thanked Weiss for spending time with her. She asked if she could invite him out again. Weiss smiled and said she could invite him anytime because they were good friends. As Weiss waved goodbye, he suddenly realized that they hadn't mentioned work at all the entire time. When he got home, he brought out the special pancakes that he had brought back from the shop for Lily, which delighted the little girl. Weiss told her the pancakes were extra special because they were from Zieglein. Lily smiled brightly and said that Zieglein was a very nice person. The next day, Weiss and Zieglein met again at the coffee shop. But this time, she was in her work attire and wore a serious expression. Zieglein began to talk about an important mission. She reported that the daughter of a wealthy family, a major contributor to the Ministry of Magic, was about to enroll in the Magic Academy. However, the girl was not satisfied with any of the robes in the capital and was throwing a tantrum, demanding a soft and one-of-a-kind robe. Her father had requested assistance from the Ministry of Magic, which made Zieglein worry that she couldn't refuse this assignment. Weiss asked if he could help find that robe. Zieglein said she couldn't go with him, so the mission was entirely up to him. Lily, hearing this, really wanted to go with her father. Thinking they were going to get pancakes, Weiss smiled, correcting her that they would have to go outside the capital, which made the little girl even more excited. Weiss explained that their goal this time was to find a species called angel bears, small, fluffy creatures known for the heart-shaped patterns on their fur and their irresistible cuteness. The father and daughter, Weiss and Lily, set off for a lush green meadow, where the little girl saw the adorable angel bears for the first time. Lily ran up to one of the bears and gently asked if it wanted to play with her. The bear nuzzled its head against Lily as a sign of affection. Before long, other bears gathered around, rubbing their faces against her, making Lily giggle because they were tickling her. Weiss watched from a distance and chuckled at the adorable sight. He realized this was a good opportunity to hunt an adult angel bear while Lily was busy playing with the cubs. In the distance, he spotted a large bear and began preparing a magic circle to attack. Suddenly, Lily ran up from behind and hugged him, asking if he wanted to play with her. Before Weiss could answer, Lily climbed onto his back, demanding he play horsey so they could chase the little bears running around. Weiss was overjoyed to see his little daughter so happy. Lily's cheerful laughter warmed his heart. But even though Lily was full of energy, Weiss was starting to feel exhausted. Sweat poured down his face as he panted, suddenly realizing that chasing angel bears was even harder than taking down a crystal dragon.